Welcome to my Accent is No Accident podcast. I'm your host, Maritza Welcomes, and today we have with us a beautiful soul, a soul sister to me, top leader, the founder of Limitless Life Institute, and the Consciousness Revolutionary. Her name is Susan Shatzer, a world renowned energetic empowerment expert has dedicated over 2 decades to empowering individuals to overcome personal and professional challenges. As the visionary founder of the Limitless Life Institute, she is committed to elevating consciousness and transforming lives through a blend of ancient wisdom and innovative practices. Susan's mission centers on helping individuals break free from trauma and limitation, unlocking a life of freedom and unlimited potential. Her holistic approach addresses transformations, emotional, physical, and spiritual aspects, fostering profound, meaningful change. Join Susan as she guides you toward a limitless experience where personal fulfillment and global impact intersect. Susan, it is an honor and a happy moment for me to have you, my soul sister, here with us today.
Thank you so much, Maritza. I am so thankful, so blessed to be invited to be here with you and to, be in service and support your audience of, just incredible men and women. And I'm so excited for what we're going to talk about today.
I know I am very excited. I was nervous, especially because I know you and I see you as a sister, and in the short time we've met and we've been together, we have become really good friends. So it's a little bit scary to actually interview a friend.
Yeah. Is this the first time?
It's the first time I interview a true friend.
Wow. I feel super honored.
So
I'll go easy on you.
okay, thank you. So first of all, let's get through, and I'm sorry to the audience if we get off track. So the very first question that I want to ask you is our theme question, Susan. Please tell me, what is your accent and why is not an accident?
So my accent is, it's a miracle I'm even here. And it's not an accident because 55 years ago, my mom's water broke on August 22nd. And I wasn't born till September 8th. So my whole life, everyone was a running joke in the family. Oh, if anyone's going to be late, it's going to be Susan. She was late to her birth. So my whole life, I just called it Susan time. So when I get there, it was the perfect time. It was the right time because it was Susan time. So my whole life, I just had this, like, the whole family, like, we'd all have this story running about the Susan time thing. And then about, I don't know, 5-8 years ago, I work with, like, the angelic realm, and they tapped me on the shoulder and they were like, do the math with that. So I thought, oh, okay. So I got my calendar out and I was like, August 22nd, 23, 24, September 8th. That's 18 days. And in 1968, it could be a world record. Who knows? Because they didn't write anything down. They didn't keep track of anything. And the best advice that the doctors had for my dad was, look, every day when you get home from work, you take the wife on the bumpiest back roads. So every day, my mom and my dad would get in the car and they'd be riding around. Can't explain why my hair's blonde. They're driving around on these back roads. So it goes by. And my dad brings my mom back in, and the doctor's like, look, like, I'm not sure what's going on, but, possibly, we may need to get some prayers in here. So when I learned that it was 18 days, when I figured it out, I went back to my parents, Maritza, and I said, did you guys know that's 18 days? And they're like, no. I'm like, how did you not know it was 18 days? Like really? And my mom was an operating room technician. So she had the whole medical background. And I was like, that's 18 days. Now your water breaks, you're getting a baby in 24 hours. Like the baby's coming on its own, you're getting induced or you're having a C-section, but you're getting a little one in 24 hours. None of this 18 days thing.
18 days. So
Yeah.
what happened?
Right. So that's what I asked. So I was thinking to myself, so was I just like stuck there, like inverted in the canal, like not breathing, like hanging out, like what's going on? And when I asked, like all like time stopped, it felt like, and all the particles froze, and this lucid dream screen like drops down in front of me, and I see myself not like this. I was just energy with God, it was definitely source. It was like greater than me, source. And there I am arguing with him or her or whoever the source is, whoever God is. And I just said, look, I know the rules up here and I'm not going. I was like, tapping out, gonna take a back seat on this one. There's got to be somebody else more qualified up here than me. And I said, this lifetime has too much illness, disease, betrayal, heartache, it was rough from the minute. And I was like, yeah, not so much. God said, it has to be you. And I'm like, why? Why does it need to be me? Why? And he opened his arms like this, Maritza, and it was as if he had taken like silver glitter and threw it in the air, and there was all these twinkling lights in between his arms. And I leaned in with these big eyes, and I was like, oh, I'm like, what's that? He said, those are the souls waiting for you to get to the planet because they incarnated for their soul's evolution, and they're having a tough time, and you're here to help and support and be of service to them. I was like, okay, I'll take the bus. And I was born.
Oh, beautiful.
And it's been game on ever since. So I came in without the veil. So I could see the unseen, hear the unheard, and know the unknown, like from a very early age. So it was challenging because I was brought up with the Catholic religion. And I'm so Catholic, it's Roman Catholic. And my family, my mom's side of the family is Italian Roman Catholic. And like their apartments that they lived in, like their balcony, like looked at the Vatican. So
Yes,
very,
very
very,
Catholic.
yeah.
So it's very difficult. I am Catholic too, and it's very difficult to understand that you have something different in you.
Yeah, it's like, because I never fit in really. Did you fit in growing up, Maritza?
I I I'm like a friendly kind of personality.
Yeah.
So I do, and I used to hang out with everybody, no matter who they were.
Yes. That was the same thing with me. I could not understand this whole best friend. This is my best friend, but I can't be a friend with her anymore because now she's your best friend. And she's not going to be my friend anymore. Like I could not understand the best friend concept. So for me, like, why can't we all be friends? Just like you're saying.
Yes.
So I became a cheerleader so that way I could hang out with the soccer team during soccer season, and I'd hang out with the football players during the football season, and the hockey players and the basketball players. Like I just, like you, it's very friendly, just got along with everyone. Like, why couldn't that just be the way it is? So I didn't fit in with like the narratives and scenarios that my childhood had running in the 80s.
Yeah. So to me it was a little different. I kind of like, yes, I hung out with everybody and then I got along with everybody, and I almost got to a point where I wanted to be a nun. So that is the part where we're a little different because I never kind of like understood why there were different religions if we all know the same God. That was the part that I didn't understand. But the the faith part of believing and praying and being dedicated to God, that part I loved. Because it I believe the reason why was because I was very close to the spiritual, to the spirit. And that always feels like home.
Yes. Yeah, the toughest part with Catholicism for me was there were so many rules. Like you couldn't actually talk to God yourself. You needed to go through the priest and you needed to confess a lot. And I felt like I was being a hypocrite if I was going along with it and I was not in my truth of, you know, I feel like we can all have great relationships. You know what I mean? Like we don't necessarily need to go to someone um, to figure it out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense what you're saying. Yes, my upbringing when I was growing up was different. And I always say that Catholicism here in US is different than in Colombia. We're more charismatic. So we are more about having fun at church and building a community, which here is some sort of building a community, but not in the sense of um, the way in Colombia is. So every church, like every zone has a church there. First of all, there is a Catholic church everywhere. Everywhere you go, there are like so many. And then
Bells are ringing somewhere.
yes. So we had groups in all ages. So I was part of a youth group, but you had the youth group from your school. I was raised Catholic, and I went to Catholic school. And I was part of the youth group where, as a teenager, I was helping the little ones understand and be children of God. But there were activities that were not crazy, just helping them to have fun and being friends and be diverse and love each other. Um, but at the same time, we'll go. But my culture, we will go out on on a party, like, and the priest was partying with us. He will be dancing and everything. So, and when I came here, it's like, oh, you heathens, the priests go out dancing with you. And I'm like, what are we in the 17th century? And I didn't understand here why it's so orthodox.
Mm-hmm. Very much.
So we are not as orthodox in Colombia. In Colombia, we're more of a community and more of family. So it's a little different. What I don't like is that part of the community, but have divisions within the community. And I think that that goes with any church of any religion. Uh, Putting aside people, I never like that. I'm like, why are you, like, if you're part of the same community, why are you not talking to those over there? It's like, what do
Yes.
you mean, those over there?
Yes. Yeah, it was so interesting growing up because, they would be like good Catholics Sunday, and then they'd be the meanest people, dirty, rotten scoundrels for 6 days, and then they'd confess on Sunday and they'd be forgiven, and then they like would do the whole thing again. I'm like, this isn't how it's supposed to be. Like you're supposed to be like good all the time, not So there was just this like wave of, yeah, and I'll go to confession on Sunday, and I'll give it up on Sunday, and I'll do it on Sunday. You know, it was just this whole thing, and I'm like, but that can't be, you know, is that really how we're supposed to be? Like, are we supposed to be mean all week, but then confess, you know, on a Saturday or a Sunday before service and then receive communion? It just didn't make sense to me. I'm like, it's like that whole, like, like you were talking about a community, like everybody gets along, like everyone helps each other out. Like there's no sides, you know, there's no corners, like it's a circle, you know, of support.
Yes. So I had the opportunity to go to schools with some modern nuns and modern priests that allowed us to be kids and to be human and to express ourselves and go to parties, and the schools threw amazing parties, prom and things like that were amazing. Actually, the best parties and the best proms are in Colombia, are the ones that the Catholic schools throw. So,
I can see the news flash now.
yeah, like I was telling my daughter, because we were watching the um, photos from her friend's prom who graduated. I was telling my daughter, you know, that in prom there was an actual band, like a famous kind of like Willie Colon band that play. And she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, it was a salsa kind of like a band that play, and we had the famous people there. And she's like, wow. And I'm like, yes. And she's like, did you? And that was in a Catholic school. I'm like, yes.
Those were the good old days, Mom.
And I said, because we're human and we need to dance, and the boys' school gets with the girls' school and do different things, because the ultimate thing is that they want the boys to fall in love with girls and then keep on growing the Catholic.
Yeah.
That now that I am 50, I know.
Yeah.
That's what they wanted us to do. And many of them got married and they're married today. So, hi, I'm very happy to know you are here watching our podcast today. It is an honor to be featuring so many entrepreneurs on the journeys of their inside voice, their accent that is not an accident. And we want to reach out more people like you who are creating a better world of diversity, inclusiveness, equity, and belonging. So please take a moment to hit the subscribe button below, like, and share to others. And even if you want to leave a comment, that'll be nice. Thank you for your support. And now back to the episode. So, but yes, and so that part is super beautiful, but sometimes um, as we grow, our spiritual needs and are different, but that doesn't make us bad. And I think that right now, I have my question to you is going back to your accent changed. And at what point did you say, I am so different because this is happening to me? How did you find that?
Yeah, there was like an incident, an accident, like what we call a come to Jesus moment where I had given birth and my son was 8 months old. And I wake up and I lose the vision in my right eye. It's cloudy, it's foggy. So right away, I just go to, oh, you know, I probably just was stressed out or something, and I broke a little blood vessel, and my body's just going to absorb the blood, you know, over time. Well, the next day, I start to have pain with it when I turn my head. So I'm only driving in the right lane because I can't actually see to change lanes, so it's safer there. And I called my mom, she operating room technician, she has the medical background. And I said, look, this is what's happening. And I don't know, what do I just hang out? Should I go see? She could make an eye doctor appointment. I was like, okay, couldn't get in fast enough. So she said, go to like an emergency eye care center. I was like, okay. So I took Nick, he was in his little carrier. He and I went there, and he did the screening, and come to find out he's a neuro optometrist or ophthalmologist. So it was great because he knew without telling me he knew. So he sent me for an MRI. So I had had symptoms, weird things happening leading up to that, but they had never asked for an MRI. They've only asked for a CT scan. And so with the MRI, I get the call on the phone, Maritza, where he says, look, there's a 51% chance that you have multiple sclerosis. And I was like, okay. I'm like, let me get a piece of paper so I can write that down, because I don't know how to spell it. So we're in the middle of a play date, kids are running around, they're on the swings, they're in my pool. I go in and get a piece of paper, and I'm like, okay, multiple. And okay, so how do you spell sclerosis? Okay, sclerosis. I say, great. So I'm going to give you the name of my pharmacy. You just go ahead and call in a prescription for whatever it is to like get rid of this, and I'll have my husband pick it up on his way home. No clue what was happening. So he says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn it over to your primary care, and I'll let her give you a ring. I was like, okay, that sounds great. On with the play date. So within 10 minutes, I get a call back, and she's on the phone. She never called clients. It was always the secretary. And she said, Susan, this is what I'd like you to do. I'm like, okay, do I need a piece of paper? She said, no. Pack a bag, 7 days. I want you in the hospital. You need IV infusions. And I'm like, well, that's probably not going to happen because I have an 8-month-old and I'm breastfeeding. And my husband, he works. So there's nobody else here. And she said, well, this has to happen. And so she started to explain to me that it's an autoimmune disease, that it's a chronic illness, that there's no cure for this, that you don't actually get better from it, that it's a progressive condition. And everything stopped. And I was like, this is not the little girl dream that I had. This is not what I foresaw my future to have in it. I have this beautiful baby boy, so happy, so fun, so jolly, like amazing. And my closest family is 8 states away. So I get on the phone with my parents and I'm like, hey, this is what I'm told. And they're like, we'll be right there. So they just drop everything, pack everything up on the way down, get there. And in this, 24-hour period of time before they arrived, I'm willing to take a look at this marriage, and I'm willing to realize and accept that I'm in an abusive marriage, that this is not contributing, that the level of daily stress and walking on eggshells, being with a narcissist is not in my highest and best interest. And it just snowballed from there. So it was at that point that I sort of had to make a change. I had to make a decision. And so I started to look for self-help and MS and alternative medicine and holistic practices and naturopathic remedies and all of this to only get into a trial drug study for like the next 3 years, which ended up being the preferred amount, was the amount that I was randomized for. And it got fast tracked too, and it is effective. But then there's some of us who just continue to progress even after that. So being on the injections and pills and steroid and chemo and all that kind of stuff, it's like there's this element of, a mentor said to me once, what if that's what you've been asking for? what? Who would ask with an 8-month-old, no family, to get sick? Like, that has to be the, like, what have you been smoking? I said, no, think about it. He said, truthfully, like, what's the one thing like your husband can't handle? And I was like, oh yeah. So he doesn't take an aspirin. He doesn't go to a dentist. He didn't believe in doctors. So what do I create? I create the one thing that he cannot deal with. So he's totally out of his element, totally out of his comfort zone, has no foundation to stand on, no medical, anything. And it's one of these things where I'm out. So before my son turned 2, there was like a cheating situation that took place before, during, and after I was pregnant. And it got called on the carpet. It was like, look, this cannot continue to happen. And, I'm not the doormat that your mother was, that your grandmother was, that the men in the family have been passing down. And it absolutely will not get passed down to my son. So you got to decide if you're going to, clean it up or clean out. And he did. He walked a month before our son turned 2. And again, my mentor came to me and said, so, Susan, what's right about that you're not getting? And I thought, because here's the projection Catholicism. Till death do you part, and sickness and in health, like you can't leave her. You can't do that. You're abandoned, So that was coming from both sides of our family, because we were all Catholic. And then I took a look at what the truth of that was, and I was like, you know what? That's the greatest gift he gave me, was just walking out and leaving. And I am so grateful, and he knows this today, that had he not done that, I would not have been able to parent the way I truly had wanted to parent our son, because that would have not have been okay. That would not have been allowed, and he would have prevented that from happening. So by just leaving, it was the greatest gift, because it was the severing point where I could then step in as the parent and just totally give my son the freedom, the space, the encouragement that I had always known that I wanted to do, and be able to consciously parent a child, since I had that teaching background from way back. It was that moment where I had to start asking questions, because I had been in conclusions and making decisions and having judgments for so long, Maritza, that once I stepped into asking a question, it empowered me. I was able to get the awareness of things that I would not have been able to have had I not been in the question. And so I've been asking questions ever since that time.
Incredible. So you you were diagnosed and you were taking the medicine that you needed to take. And this is when your son was just a baby. Then when he was about 2 years old, he, your ex-husband walks away. So fast forward to a little more. When did you find out that you were able to talk to spirit, or how did you find out? How was that fun moment?
That's a good one. So I don't know if it's just my family or Italian or what, but so we were very small family in the Italian kind of frame of things. So there was my grandmother's house, our house, then my mother's brother, who lived 4 houses up the street from us. My uncle lived there. Well, we all have the same photographs of our dead relatives, but we all have them in a different frame, and we all have them in a different location in our homes. So there's Nanu Josh and Nona Betta, and as you go down, grandmother and grandfather, down the history. So in fact, my grandmother's house, she had a hallway all the way down from the kitchen to the bathroom and the bedrooms. And she had one whole wall all the way down. And she had this frame that she put in, and she had the earliest pictures of our family on one end. And then she started to just bring the family, the heritage, the next generation, then the next generation, the next generation, and the next generation. And then you saw us way on this other end. And when we would all get together, we'd be always talking about, oh, do you remember when so-and-so did this? Do you remember when that happened? And that was so funny. And we'd get out photo albums, and we used to have the 9mm films. And so we'd be running like, the black and white movies, of it. And as we would all get together and we'd talk about them, their essence, their energy, their consciousness would show up, and they'd go hang out by their pictures. So
Oh,
my
wow.
whole life, every time we would get together as a family, they would be hanging out by their pictures. And I just assumed that that's when you passed away, you went and hung out with your picture in the different houses, right? Like, I don't know, like I was really young. So I remember one time I'm at my aunt's house, and she had a curio cabinet, like the china cabinet. Do you remember those? In the middle, and she had the great grandfather, great great grandfather on one side, and the great great grandmother on the other side. These were like gold antique frames, not something that you would just like, have Amazon delivered to your house. These were antiques and heavy. And so my great great grandfather was having a come apart. So he was in the black suit with the tails. He had the black top hat. He had a pocket watch that he would flip out, flick back and forth. He had a cane that he walked with, and he would like rest it on his arm, and he'd pull it out, and he's pacing back and forth. So I just get up off the couch. I walk over to the wall that has the picture on it that nobody else can see anything. And I start having a conversation with the wall. And I'm like, "Morning, Josh." And I'm like, "What's going on?" He's like, "It's dinner time, and Nona Betta's not here, and I can't find her, and the dinner's supposed to be on the table, and I don't know what's happening, and I'm hungry." And I was like, "Oh, let me check for you." So I just leaned back to look around the other side of the china cabinet, and her picture's not there. And I'm like, "Oh, let me see." So I was screamed down the hall to my aunt. I'm like, "Hey, where's Nona Betta's picture?" She's like, "Oh, it fell off the wall and it cracked, and it's with, like, it has to go to a specific, you can't take it to Hobby Lobby, and just Michael's or Joanne and just get it glued. Like, it had to go to a special person that had these vices, and then the gold, inlay like
Yeah.
put back in." So I look, she probably just went with her picture. He's like, "What do you mean her picture?" That's when I realized they're in their own time loop. So he was in a time loop that had to do with dinner, that had to do with holidays, that had to do with family. So I realized he was in his time loop. So I said, "Look, you're hungry. We're about to eat. Come and eat with us." He's like, "Okay." So I'm like, "Come on." So I just like turn around and start walking. My mother calls me over, and she's just like, "Susan, what are you doing?" "Well, no, Josh." And I start to go through this whole explanation, and she's just like, "That might be something you do not want to tell anybody else." And I was like, "Okay." So that's when it was like, shut it down, turn it off. It's not safe. It's not okay. You're going to get judged. Not a good thing. So that's how I first knew that I could see the unseen, hear the unheard, and know the unknown. And then throughout my entire life, it's just been exponentializing on abilities. Like, as I would continue through my life, like more things would come online, and then I could tap into people's energy, and then I could see their lifelines, and then I could see what their ancestors passed down to them, and then I could see what was projected into their future. And so there was all these things, and then I would just be talking with friends, and I mean, I had this like lie detector, and someone would say something, I'd be like, "Yeah, that's not really what it is. It's something completely different." They're like, "Well, what do you think it is?" "Well, if you check with this and did that, then that, and it would be true." And they'd be like, "How did you know that?" And I'm like, "Well, you just showed me." So like their higher self was showing me what was really going on in a relationship, or in their body, or with their career, or whatever was happening. So I would just kind of know things, like people couldn't, people call me up on the phone, "Where is it?" And I go, "Okay, so you're going to flip the couch over, because on the other side in the pocket on the left is going to be where the phone is." "Okay, bye." You know what I mean? Like, because every molecule has consciousness, Maritza. And so consciousness talks to us. So literally when we would say, oh, I wish I was the fly on the wall, I'm like, well, I just talked to the wall. The wall would just tell me what was going on in the room. You know what I mean? So, it was, you can't explain that to people, and people just look at you and go, Susan, you are so crazy. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm like, because I don't know how it works. Look, I didn't know with this body. I'm like, did you get one? Like, because I've not been taught how to do any of this. Like, I don't even know what it's called. Like, people say, how do you do that? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't, because there's not a plan or a path or a formula or a checklist. I'm like, it just kind of happens. So having found out about my birth, now I can see, everything that took place and the
Yeah.
time it took place to where I am today, supporting people in healing themselves.
And I love it because I I mean the way you tell the story is amazing. I love it. But what I like the most is not only the fact that you were a little girl, but also the fact that the adults around you are like, oh, you're talking to a dead person and they might be here. So that probably is here. This Jesus is out of your mind. Moving forward with this, I would like to talk about how important it is that to understand that people are not bad. Like we are not born naturally bad or evil. Um, but we are actually brought into it by our surroundings.
This is a great question. I love this question because this is just going to open it up for everybody. Are you ready to get up? So before you choose to come here and take on a lifetime in a physical body, you select your experiences. So we incarnate here for our soul's evolution. It's not a fun place to be. Earth is not very nice. It's not a cool, it's not a joy party place. No. It's filled with polarity, duality, evil, torture, torment, slavery, like just it's a hard time here on planet Earth. So when you come down, you choose your experiences that you'd like to have. And people agree to give you those experiences, and you agree to give other people experiences for their soul's evolution. So before you get here, you get to pick your parent. So everywhere we thought we were having our children and we were picking, and look at what a great job we did in creating this. Yeah, not so much. So they chose us for parents, and we chose our parents, and they chose their parents. And there could be something that they required from them. It could just be like in my son's case, the DNA, and also the narcissistic frequency of, that being how, the polarity of being with me and being with his dad, and then having the opportunity to choose. So he wasn't in a no choice universe. He was in a choice universe, and he was like, okay, so that doesn't work for me, but this feels really nice. So moving forward, he gets to choose for him. So what happens is you've never done anything wrong. Just let that sink in. Like, how often and how long and how many times were you taught that you made a bad choice, a bad decision, that was a terrible situation you were in? But actually you're creating your reality. Your subconscious creates your reality. And so what's running in the subconscious is what shows up in your reality. And what we have running in there is like old systems, old programming, old beliefs, old loops, limiting things, all kind of stuff that was passed down and brought forward and like haven't been forgotten and was made important. And so it's all mixed up in there. But when you slide down the birth canal and you get out here, you have amnesia and you don't actually remember anything. So you're starting over every time you come back through, and that's the soul recycle. kind of thing that goes through. So as you're coming in already with these experiences that you're going to experience, so you can have the loss of love or a car accident or an education, whatever it happens to be, for your soul's evolution. And then you get to a point in this lifetime where consciousness has risen so high that you're like, yeah, so this doesn't actually work for me anymore. Like we all of a sudden we start to question things, like things we've always been doing, like why do we do that? Why do we choose that? And when you were 2 years old, you were asking your parents that same thing. Why? See, 2 years old doesn't have the veil down. They're not in the box yet of this reality. They haven't been totally boxed in with the lid of like, this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad. They still have the connection to all possibilities. And so they're asking their adults in their life, like, why can't I wear my princess dress to church? Why can't I have dessert first? Why can't I wear my Spider-Man costume to school? Because they realize, they know that there's a different possibility available that the adults aren't choosing, and they want to know why. And what do we adults say? Because I said so, because I'm the adult, because I'm the parent. It's like you're not actually giving them the answer or the truth around it. And when you're older, you're like, so why is that happening? It's like, oh, because this is the way we've done it. This is the way we've always done it. And has worked for us in the past. So we're going to continue to do that. But our kids coming in, you know how you're more conscious, Maritza, than your parents?
Yes.
And our kids are more conscious than we are.
Than we are. Yes.
So the kids are actually turning into our teachers because we're willing to acknowledge that they're an infinite being just in a smaller body, and we're an infinite being just in a larger body. And we're all here to receive our experiences for our soul's evolution, and that we've not done anything wrong. So we have this, I call it like a ceremony, but it's this little like, the play is done. Like we're done with the play. Like all of these characters in the play that have been treating us poorly and giving us the runaround and making it hard for us, like, yeah, this play is done. So we take our bow, we get our flowers, and we exit stage left. Then we go down to the next theater where we create an entirely new play, a new story in our lives where we can invite in the characters we'd like to play with. And what happens is you have people who contribute to you, people, places, things, activities, adventures, some that are neutral, and then some that, suck the life out of you. Well, those have to go for sure. But now, even the neutrals, you have to step into that neutral place, that neutral person, you have to lift them up. Like it takes a lot of energy to lift up the neutral, to get them to where you're vibrating on this happy, fun frequency.
Okay.
Well, that takes too much energy for me. So they have to go. So I'm just choosing the fun factor. And I talk about it in a lot of my work that I do, that if it's not between an 8 and a 10 with the fun, then we have to fix it, because that's why we're here, is to have a lot of fun.
And I love this conversation because it's allowing us to understand what is that our purpose is by choice too. We are doing the things that we want to do. But I love it.
There's some fireworks just for you, girl. Woo-hoo!
So, in the last question that I have, because we're getting closer to the end, is about how can we become more conscious? How can we help our families to become more conscious? And then I say this because in the spiritual realm, when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, is like, duh, do we need to even say those words?
Yeah. So the like easiest way that I could suggest is to align with neutrality, to get out of polar. So polar is right, wrong, good, bad, high, low, light, dark, fat, thin, big, tall, that kind of a thing, or not big and tall, but big and small, fat and tall, tall and short. I'm just trying to do opposites. Step out of that and be in the question. So like one day my son came back from school and he was really upset in the car. And I said, totally neutral. Before I was conscious, I would have been like, who said, what did they say? Well, where was the teacher? Did you tell well, what did she say? Well, what happened? Right? Like, that's what we do. Except here I'm in the neutrality, right? So the conversation goes something like this. So Nick, what are you upset about? Well, this kid and is a different language, and then this what they were doing, and then I go, well, how'd that make you feel? He goes, not very good, Mom. And I'm like, did you happen to tell anybody about it? He said, yeah, I told the teacher. And I'm like, what'd she say? She goes, she'd handle it. I'm like, oh, she's going to handle it. Okay. So are you still upset? Yeah, I'm upset. How long do you want to be upset for? The rest of the day, Mom. I'm really upset about this. I'm like, okay, you can be upset the rest of the day. That sounds like a plan. So we're pulling in the driveway, and I'm like, look, if you're going to be upset, I'm like, man, really go at it. I'm like, you may want to like pound the carpet, stamp your feet. I haven't seen it yet, but when you're upset, normally people would cry. So feel free to let it rip. I'll meet you inside. So we get out of the car, we get in the house, like a half hour goes by, 45 minutes. He's like, hey, Mom, can I go in the pool? And I'm like, the pool? I'm like, that would not be upset. That would be fun. And you decided you were going to be upset for the whole day. So you still got more time to be upset. And I just turned on my heels and walked away. And he sat and he thought about it. He was like probably like 7 or 8. And he came back over. He's like, hey, Mom, he's like, would it be okay if I was done being upset? And I'm like, oh, you mean you're finished? He's like, yeah, I think I'm okay now. I'm done being upset. And I'm like, okay, well, if you're sure you're done, then yeah, you could choose something else. And from that point forward, Maritza, we jumped in the pool. We had a great time. Anytime he comes and he goes, I'm really upset. And I'm like, how long would you like to be upset for? And he's like, 5 minutes. And I'm like, you got it. 5 minutes, ready, set, go. And I was just able to teach him consciously about thoughts, feelings, and emotions. There's so many of that we're not taught. Like we're taught you're supposed to be, you break up in a relationship, well, you should at least be upset for 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 months, maybe years if you were married. There's this time thing about when someone passes away, like you need to be mourning and you need to go through these steps and it has to be difficult and you should be upset. And do you know what I mean? It's like, and I'm like, well, what if we don't have to do it that way? Right? What if there's an easier, more fun way to do life than how we were taught?
Yes.
And it's by being in the question that actually allows you the possibility of choosing differently. And that was just one example, and there's a lot of those we could be here for a couple more hours talking about, just looking at things that you just sit back and go like, why? like, like, I would choose that because for what reason?
Exactly.
And then you kind
So,
of laugh at yourself because you're
I,
like, what is that?
and it's just coming to the breathe, acknowledge the feeling, and let go. Let it go, like Elsa. Let go.
Yes,
So, um, I would love for you to tell us how you can help people and how they can find you.
sure. I would love to, Maritza. Thank you so much for this time tonight. We are just having so much fun together. And, what if that's what life is supposed to be about? What if that's why we were here? It's like, okay, have your lessons, learn what you're supposed to learn, and then like get out, like I'm out. The show's over. Exit stage left. Like, on to the fun. Like, I feel like in Madagascar, when Marty, the zebra, he takes this pole and he draws a line in the sand, and he's got the lion on one side and he and the giraffe on the other, and he goes, "This is the fun side. That is not, this is the fun side." So for all of your audience, I would love for all of us to draw a line and declare that we are on the fun side. Like, from this moment forward, we are picking it, we are choosing it, we are having it, we are going all in Texas Hold'em. All your chips are in for the fun. So you can reach me at my website, which is Susan Shatzer, my first and last name.com. And I would love to offer any of your audience members who maybe have some questions or would like to talk about some things or get some of what's happening. I'd love to, serve and support them. So when you go there, just click the book button, and basically you'll get like 30 minutes of no charge, like free time, just for us to kind of like chat and see how I can serve and support you. And this has been so much fun tonight. I look forward. I hope we can do this again. This is so cool.
Yes, yes, we have to do this again, and then possibly when I am a little more awakened. So, one of the things that I have to tell the audience is that I did click the 30-minute call, and I found a wonderful friend. I can not be more grateful. I have right here one of the programs that Susan has, and now I'm doing it with my family. It's can I say it? What it is?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a gratitude journal. We did it for a month in a group of very nice people, and now I'm doing it with my every night, and they love it. They absolutely love it. And when we laugh and we're serious, we all, thanks to Susan. Thank you so much. And now I'm translating it to Spanish. So lo podemos tener en español si quiere.
Ole. And I love it. You even said that your husband was working late tonight, so you were going to send him the questions and you were going to make him text you back the answers so he could be right on track with all of you. Like, yay!
Yes, yes. And then I'll send you a picture of it. Yes, it's what the plan is tonight.
I love it. I love it. Mwah. I adore you,
Thank
Maritza.
you so much, Susan. I love you very much. I would like to know, what is a last thought from your spirit or the guides that you would like to leave the audience with?
That's a loaded question. Yeah, I would like to share that there is an emotional chart that's available, and it starts with death at the bottom, and then it goes up from there, and then you get to God's consciousness. And just below God's consciousness, the highest frequency that you can be is grateful, thankful, being in gratitude. And just up from the bottom, the first level up from death is anger, rage, fury, hate, blame, shame, regret, and guilt. If you have any of those thoughts, feelings, and emotions, it might be a benefit to get on the phone and talk. But again, that's high and low. And so we flip the chart this way, Maritza. So there's no high and low, like everybody's on the same level. And do you remember the cars, the old cars when we were growing up, and the radios that we used to have at the house, and they had a dial?
Yes,
and you
yes.
have to dial in the radio to a station, right? So that's what you're doing. You're dialing in your frequency to a certain point. And as you dial in, you get a clear signal, right?
Yes.
Because everything's energy, and energy is a vibration or a frequency. So you get a clear signal, and that's where you are attracting from, because like attracts like. So if you're on the low end, you're attracting more thoughts, feelings, emotions, people, places, and things If you're on the other end, you're attracting higher vibrational people, places, things, and ideas, but you're just on a spectrum where you're just rolling the numbers, and you may be AM or FM or the goodies and oldies or the jazz or the rock band. But know that you have control over it, and you just dial in your frequency to where you'd like to be.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much, Susan, for tonight. It was tonight. We're at night.
You're so welcome. It has been such a joy spending time and just like chatting about, our childhood. We grew up
Yes.
on 2 different continents, 2 different countries, yet we've had similar experiences. So what is the likelihood of that bringing
Exactly.
now?
Exactly.
Now we live in the same state. Like, we're just a couple cities away from it. Like,
Yes.
who would have imagined that even?
And I love that. And the best thing about this is that I didn't get off track so badly. And I want to thank you for your time, for accepting this interview. And I want to tell my audience what I always tell them. Remember, you came to this world because you were loved, to be loved and loved one another. Thank you. And until next time.
Hi, it's Maritza here. If you like this episode of My Accent is No Accident podcast and would like to listen more like this, subscribe wherever you're listening to it or watching it. Leave us a nice review and share with your friends, family, and network. Thanks for listening.